Hey guys, I'm back with another scary no sleep story reading, ASMR style of course, and today's story was written by Reddit user Life is Strange Me Too, and you can find more of his work at facebook.com/lifeisstrangemetoo. The title of the story is I love my family, that's why I had to kill my husband. So tell me again, Mrs. Crabtree, why did you kill your husband? It took a lot of effort to meet the detective's gaze. It was cold, sharp. I felt naked under that gaze, like my clothes and skin had disappeared, and all that remained was my bones and my secrets. I already told you, I said. He was cheating on me. Said the detective. He wrote something in his little notebook. Well, he continued, that part of your story does make sense. He was found to have a secret cell phone, and the nights he claimed he was working late, he remains largely unaccounted for. What I don't understand is why you erased the contents of his other phone, nor why you burned down the family house after you killed him. I stuttered. Could he know the truth? No. How could he? Just stick to my story, and everything will be fine. I was just so upset. I don't know what I was doing. I looked down at the table, not daring to look into his face to see that he had bought my lie. I thought he had, until he leaned in closer and said, well, that's all well and good, Mrs. Crabtree, but you see, the basement survived the fire, mostly unscathed. I'm guessing I don't need to tell you what we found in there, but if I have to, I will. No, I said, I know what you found. The detective leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and let out a heavy sigh. He rubbed his forehead and said, okay, let's start from the beginning. The truth this time. The truth, I said. What could be more horrible than the truth? I tried to say nothing, to stick to my story, but something inside me broke, and the truth, for whatever it was worth, began to pour out of me. It was an accident, I said. Just pure dumb luck. I was out for lunch and I saw Andrew sitting on a bus stop, playing with his phone. He always played with his phone. He'd get on to me about watching too much TV, but then he'd spend hours unlocking the next level on Candy Crush. Sorry, off topic. That's okay, Mrs. Crabtree. We'll sift the relevant details later. Right, I said. So I saw him there, on his phone, and I thought I'll give him a call, see what he's doing. And then maybe give him a wave. I thought it might be funny. But Andrew, he didn't answer my call. My call went to another phone, the one he kept in his pocket. His normal phone, I guess. He just looked at it and hung up. What did you do then? I shook my head. Well, I was rattled. I drove home and tried to think of a reason why Andrew might have two phones. And what did you come up with? Well, I didn't want to believe it at first, but it just kept coming back again and again, that thought that maybe he was cheating on me. I never thought Andrew was that kind of man, of course. He's always been wonderful. A loving husband, a good father. But you suspected. I knew I was being silly, but I had to find out for certain, or I knew I'd go crazy. So I snooped a little. And what did you find? Well, I called his boss first. I know I shouldn't have, but, I told him that our son Jackson was sick and that I needed Andrew, but he could cut back on the days that made him work late. Ah, said the detective, so Jackson was having health problems? No, he's a healthy boy. Always has been. He's the best hitter on the baseball team, you know? I was just fishing, you know? And then his boss told me that Andrew hadn't worked late in months, and that lately he'd even been clocking out early. It might have been a problem, except that Andrew was always ahead of schedule on his projects. He's always been that way, so, you know, he's good at everything he does.
I see. So what did you do then?
I looked down at my clenched fists. Blood was pouring out of the sides. I opened them, and the blood flowed quicker from the wounds my fingernails had gouged into my palms. I'm sorry. So terribly sorry. An involuntary spasm that threatened to become a convulsive sob shook my body. I held it back.
It's okay, said the detective. Do you need medical attention?
No, I said. I'm fine. I just want to get this over with as quickly as possible.
Okay, then please continue.
I followed him, I said. I followed him to this woman's house. I expected him to get out of the car and go inside, but he never did. He just watched. He would sit there for hours every day just watching. I wasn't sure what to do. I just went home and drank a bottle of wine and passed out on the couch. I was in agony those days, and Andrew didn't even notice. Why would he? He had other interests.
You said those few days.
Yes. It was 3 days before I saw her on the news, the girl that Andrew had been watching. They said she was missing. The detective scribbled something quickly in his pad, and then leaned forward.
I see, he said. So what happened next?
I decided to check the basement.
I see. And did you find anything in there?
My body convulsed again. But this time it was vomit I was holding back, not a sob. Yes, I said, I found her. The girl from the news. The one Andrew had been following. I would have called the police, only she was already dead. There was nothing anyone could do to help her.
And why is it that Andrew was able to do this in the basement without you being aware?
The basement was his darkroom, I said. Where he developed his photos. Nobody was allowed in there except for him. He even kept the key hidden inside a pair of cowboy boots he hadn't worn in 20 years. He didn't know that I knew that, though.
Uh-huh,
said the detective, scribbling something down in his pad.
So you waited for him to come home?
Yes, I said. I took my grandfather's old .45 from the gun safe and I sat there, waiting for him. Eventually he came. My hands were shaking so bad. I'm lucky I hit him at all, but I did.
Is that when you took his phone?
Yes.
And you erased it?
Yes.
Mrs. Crabtree?
Yes.
What was on the phone?
I hesitated. It was... Oh God, it was pictures of girls. Some of them still alive, and then... Later, the same girls cut into pieces. Like meat at a butcher shop. It was horrifying.
Anything else?
No, that was it. The detective leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms, scratched the back of his chair, and then scratched his chin. It was a good chin, strong, dotted with black stubble and a few shades of gray.
I'm still not sure about something.
And what is that?
The photos. Andrew was a photography buff, right? He even had his own darkroom. Furthermore, there's evidence of his hobby all over the social medias. He's even been featured in a few local exhibits.
I felt an itch, like something wriggling beneath my skin. What's your point? I asked.
Well, My point is that the burner phone we recovered only had a cheap, crappy camera, and I don't see a photography buff stopping to use that, especially not when he's got a $2,000 camera with a telephoto lens at home. I shrugged. He was crazy, I said. Who can explain the behavior of someone like that? The detective nodded, like he earnestly agreed. Well, you're right about that, but there's something else. Oh, I said, what is that? I could hear the tension in my own voice. It sounded like I could shatter into 1,000 pieces at any moment. Andrew was well known in the community on account of the photography exhibits. He was seen around town in the company of young, high school-aged boy. Your son Jackson is in high school, right? Lots of boys are in high school. Right. And Jackson is one of them. We checked with the school, and we were able to confirm that he was out sick after school baseball practice on the days that Andrew took off early from work, as well as some of the days he was spotted around town. What should I make of that? Kids get sick all the time, I said. I don't know why. Except you said earlier that Andrew hadn't been sick lately. You do remember that, right? Your credit card statements also show no record of doctor's visits, and you haven't filed claims with your insurance. I stopped. Son of a bitch. He had trapped me in my own words. And what was worse, he knew. He knew the truth all along, and he backed me into a corner. Mrs. Crabtree, his voice was gentle. You know what I think. I think that you love your son. I think there were messages on the phone that incriminated him, and so you destroyed the evidence, wiped the phone, and burned it down with the house so that he wouldn't go to jail. Is that right? Yes, that was right. God damn him. God damn Andrew. God damn this detective. Fuck everybody. What was I supposed to do, even knowing what he was? It was hard to kill Andrew, the man I'd loved for 20 years. The man who loved me, fathered my son. But my son. I slowly raised my eyes to meet the detective's gaze once again. I kept my face flat, emotionless. And then I lied.